stood near the bookshelf, staring at the small passport-sized photo in your trembling hand. It was a picture of your family, your mom and dad smiling warmly at the camera, tears welled up in your eyes as your thumb gently brushed over the faces. "Why are you not accepting my marriage, Dad?" you whispered, your voice barely audible. "When are you going to invite me home?" Your heart ached, longing for the warmth of the family you missed so much. You kissed the photo softly, feeling the cold paper against your lips, imagining it was the last connection you had with them. "I really miss you, Dad. I love you, Mom and Dad," you murmured between soft sobs, letting the tears silently fall down your cheeks. Suddenly you heard footsteps approaching the bedroom door. You quickly wiped your tears and hastily hid the photo behind your skirt. The last thing you wanted was for Jungkook to see it. You knew he didn't like it when you brought up your family. It wasn't that he hated them, he just couldn't stand. "Van, what are you doing here?" His deep voice filled the room as he stepped inside, his eyes searching for you. "I have been calling you for the past 10 minutes." You turned to face him, trying to compose yourself, but the traces of your tears were still visible. You forced a small, shaky smile. "Jungkook, you're here." "Yes, me," he said, his tone a bit serious as he studied your face. His sharp eyes noticed the redness in your eyes and the way you avoided looking directly at him. "What are you doing?" he asked again, his voice firmer now. You swallowed hard, quickly turning your head away to avoid his intense gaze. "Nothing, Jungkook, just dust." "I was dusting the bookshelves and some dust got into my eyes." You pretended to rub your eyes as if you were trying to get rid of imaginary dust. Jungkook didn't move for a moment, his eyes locked onto yours, seeing right through your lie. He stepped closer, his tall figure casting a shadow over you. His expression softened, but he didn't believe your words, man. He spoke softly. You froze as he gently took your hand and pulled it forward. He looked down at your hand, noticing the edge of the photograph sticking out from behind your skirt. Without a word, he carefully took the photo from you. Your heart pounded in your chest as you watched him examine the picture. Jungkook's face grew serious as he looked at the familiar photo of your parents. His jaw clenched for a brief moment, but then his expression softened. When he saw the pain in your eyes, he let out a deep sigh, shaking his head slightly. "How many times have I told you to not take this out?" he asked softly, his voice carrying a mix of concern. You couldn't bring yourself to answer. Instead, you stood there in silence, staring down at your feet, feeling the weight of your emotions. Tears started to build up again, but you didn't want to cry in front of him. You hated feeling so weak. Jungkook didn't say anything for a moment, then, to your surprise, he gently wiped away the tears from your cheeks with his thumb. His touch was warm and surprisingly tender. "Hey, it's okay," he whispered, pulling you into his strong embrace, his arms wrapped around you protectively, holding you close to his chest. "Don't cry, I'm here for you, Ryan." You couldn't hold back anymore. Your body trembled as you cried silently against his chest. Feeling the overwhelming sadness and longing for your parents, Jungkook tightened his embrace, stroking your back soothingly as he whispered comforting words into your ear. "They will accept you one day," he murmured. "I promise, just give them time." You nodded weakly, your tears soaking into his shirt. His words were kind, but deep down you didn't know if your father would ever forgive you for marrying Jungkook. Your father had always been strict, and he hated the idea of his daughter marrying someone like Jungkook, a man feared by many, a mafia king with power and influence that stretched beyond anything your father could control. "I miss them so much, Jungkook," you whispered through your sobs. "I just want to see them again. I want to go home." Jungkook sighed deeply, his hand gently running through your hair. "I know you do," he said quietly, "but you have me now. You're not alone." His words were true, but it didn't take away the ache in your heart. Your family had meant everything to you, and their rejection felt like a wound that wouldn't heal. It wasn't that you regretted marrying Jungkook. You loved him with all your heart, but losing your family in the process had left you broken in ways you couldn't describe. Jungkook held you for a long time, letting you cry until your tears finally slowed. He kissed the top of your head, his lips lingering against your hair. They don't hate you, Wine, he whispered. They just don't understand it. One day they will. You pulled away slightly, wiping your eyes with the back of your hand. You looked up at Jungkook, his face filled with a mixture of concern and love. But what if they never accept me? What if they never forgive me for marrying you? Jungkook's jaw tightened at your words, his eyes darkening for a moment. He hated that your father had made you feel this way. If they can't see how much you mean to me, then they don't deserve you, he said firmly, but I believe they will come around. You shook your head, feeling defeated. It's been months, Jungkook. They haven't called me once. They don't even answer when I try to reach out. Jungkook's face grew tense and you could see the frustration bubbling beneath the surface. He hated seeing you in pain and he despised how your father had treated you since the wedding, but instead of letting his anger show, he cubed your face in his hands, forcing you to look into his eyes. You're my wife, he said, his voice firm and unerring. I will protect you from anyone, even if it's your own father. Do you understand me? You nodded slowly, feeling the intensity of his words sink in. Jungkook was always protective of you, even from the beginning. He had thrown out all the photos of your family not because he hated them, but because he couldn't stand seeing you cry over them. It hurt him to see you in pain, and he was willing to do anything to shield you from it. But deep down, you knew that no matter how much Jungkook tried to protect you, the emptiness left by your family's absence would never fully go away. After a while, Jungkook broke the hug and kept your face gently in his hands. His eyes softened as he looked at you. Look, Wine, forget about it, okay? Just focus on the present, he said, his voice calm and soothing. We have to get ready. Did you forget? It's your friend's wedding reception tonight. You blinked, suddenly remembering the event. No, I didn't forget, you said quickly. I have already made preparations for that. A playful grin spread across Jungkook's face. Oh, so we are going to have a hot session tonight after the party then? He teased, his voice dropping low as he winked at you. Shut up, you squealed, laughing as he playfully pinched his stomach. Don't start with that. Jungkook chuckled, rubbing his stomach where you had pinched him. Ah, now that's my wine. See, you look so cute when you smile, he said, his eyes sparkling with affection. He leaned down and kissed your forehead softly. Just keep smiling, all right. If you be happy, you will keep me happy. You couldn't help but smile at his sweet words. There was something so comforting in the way he always knew how to cheer you up, how to make you feel loved even after everything. I will try, you said softly, feeling warmth spread through your heart. Good. Jungkook smiled, then took a step back. Alright, get ready here. I will go get dressed in the other room. You watched him leave, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. You knew Jungkook loved you more than anything, more than himself even. That was the reason you had left everything behind for him. Your family, your past. No one could love you the way Jungkook did, and for that you were truly grateful. You smiled to yourself and made your way to the bathroom to take a shower. The warm water had washed away the lingering sadness, and by the time you stepped out, you felt refreshed and ready for the evening ahead. You got dressed in an elegant navy blue off-shoulder evening gown, something classy and comfortable for the wedding reception. You twirled slightly in front of the mirror, admiring how the fabric flowed effortlessly around you. The gown hugged your figure perfectly, and the delicate embroidery added a touch of sophistication. As you were finishing up, Jungkook came back into the room wearing a sleek black suit with a crisp white shirt underneath. His eyes widened when he saw you, and he stood still, staring at you from head to toe. Wow, Jungkook whispered, looking genuinely stunned. My princess is looking absolutely gorgeous. You blushed at his compliment and smiled shyly. Really? You asked, turning slightly so he could get a better look. Of course, Jungkook said with a smirk. In fact, I feel like tearing the dress apart and enjoying you right here. He winked, his voice dropping teasingly as he stepped closer. You rolled your eyes and laughed, feeling your cheeks heat up. Yeah, Jungkook, stop it. You're always in the mood for that, you said, playfully swatting his arm. Jungkook chuckled, his grin widening as he pulled you toward him by your waist. His hands rested on your hips as he leaned down to whisper in your ear, his breath warm against your skin. Can you blame me? When I see my lovely wife looking like this, I can't help myself, and I know you enjoy it too. You felt your face flush as his words sent a shiver down your spine. You couldn't deny the chemistry between the two of you and how easily he could make you blush. Stop it, Jungkook, you mumbled, trying to hide your smile. We need to leave or we'll be late for the reception. Jungkook chuckled at your reaction, clearly amused by your blushing face. He gave you a playful squeeze on the waist before letting you go. Alright, but I will hold you to it for later, he teased, his eyes twinkling mischievously. You shook your head, still smiling, as he grabbed your clutch from the dresser. Come on, you said, heading toward the door. Let's go before we actually miss the whole thing. Jungkook followed behind you, still chuckling to himself. You're too cute when you're embarrassed. You know that? You rolled your eyes again, but there was no hiding the smile on your lips. Jungkook had that effect on you, always teasing, always making you laugh. As you walked out the door together, you felt grateful once again for having him by your side. No matter what, Jungkook loved you in a way no one else ever could, and that was enough to keep you smiling through anything. The drive to the reception was peaceful, filled with light chatter and laughter between you and Jungkook. You held his hand, feeling grateful for him by your side. As you arrived at the venue, the elegant decorations and soft music welcomed you. You were talking about random things, about how beautiful Ria would look and how the evening might go, when you suddenly stopped in your tracks near the entrance. Your heart nearly jumped out of your chest when you saw them, your parents. Mom, Dad, you whispered, your voice barely audible at the sight of them hit you like a wave. It had been months since you last saw them, months since your father had cut ties with you after your decision to marry Jungkook. Your hands trembled slightly, still holding Jungkook's hand tightly. You couldn't believe they were here. It wasn't surprising though, Ria's father was your father's best friend after all. But seeing them in person after all this time made your heart ache. Your father glanced in your direction, his eyes cold as he landed on your intertwined hands. Without a word, he turned to your mother. What are you standing here for? Let's go inside, he said in a harsh tone, his voice leaving no room for argument. Your mother's eyes filled with tears as she looked at you, wanting to speak, to say something, anything. But she respected your father's decision and obediently followed him inside. You could see the pain in her eyes, the longing to hold you, to talk to you, but she didn't dare go against her husband. You stood frozen for a moment, watching them walk away, the lump in your throat grew, and you felt tears threatening to fall. Jungkook, sensing your emotions, gently patted your shoulder. It's okay, Wine, he whispered softly, his voice calm and comforting. Don't spoil your mood. Ria wouldn't want to see you like this. You nodded, swallowing the emotions that threatened to overwhelm you. You couldn't break down here, not in front of everyone, especially not at your friend's wedding reception. Jungkook turned to his guards, giving them a silent command with a simple nod. Stay outside. He ordered them quietly, and the guards stepped back to follow his instructions. Taking a deep breath, you gathered yourself and entered the venue with Jungkook. You spotted Ria almost immediately, standing beside her new husband, both of them radiating happiness. You couldn't help but smile at the sight of your friend in her beautiful wedding gown. Ria, you called out, walking up to the newlyweds. You and Jungkook both congratulated the couple, offering warm wishes. Wine, Ria exclaimed, her eyes lighting up as she hugged you. I'm so happy you're here. And wow, you look amazing, she added, looking at your elegant outfit. Thank you. You smiled, hugging her back, and you look absolutely stunning, Ria. Congratulations again. Her husband smiled and shook hands with Jungkook, exchanging a few pleasantries. The conversation was light and happy, and for a moment you forget about the pain of seeing your parents earlier. However, your heart sank when you noticed the photographer approaching your parents, asking them to take a picture with the couple. They were standing next to Ria's father, your father's best friend. As the photographer positioned them, you heard your father's voice cut through the noise of the crowd. We are not interested in taking photographs with someone who doesn't respect their parents, he said coldly, his words aimed directly at you and Jungkook. His voice was filled with bitterness, and the way he refused to even look at you stung deeply. Jungkook's jaw tightened immediately, and you could feel the tension radiating from him. His hand clenched around yours, and you knew he was seconds away from saying something. But you didn't want a scene, you didn't want to make Ria's day about your family's issues. Quickly you placed your other hand on Jungkook's arms and gave him a gentle squeeze, silently asking him to let it go. Jungkook, you whispered softly, don't. Let's just step away. He hesitated for a moment, his eyes burning with quiet anger. But then he looked at you, seeing the plea in your eyes, and sighed. Fine, he muttered, though you could tell it was hard for him to hold back. You gently pulled him away from the frame, stepping back to give your parents their space. It hurt more than words could describe. To hear your father's harsh words, to feel like you weren't welcome in your own family, but you kept a brave face, determined not to let your emotions ruin the evening. The photographer, however, wasn't aware of the tension between you and your parents. As he took the photos, he unknowingly added you and Jungkook into the background of the frame since you were standing nearby. You didn't say anything about it, you just stood there quietly feeling Jungkook's comforting presence beside you. His hand never left yours, as if he was silently reminding you that no matter what happened, he was here for you. After the photographs were taken, you turned to Jungkook and smiled softly, though it didn't quite reach your eyes. Let's just enjoy the rest of the evening, okay? You said, trying to focus on the good things like Korea's happiness and the celebration. Jungkook looked at you, his expression softening. He raised a hand and gently kissed your cheek, his thumb brushing away the single tear that had escaped your eye. Wine, you don't deserve this. Don't let them get to you, he whispered. I know, you whispered back, your voice barely audible, but I can't help it. He pulled you into his arms, holding you close for a brief moment. I love you, and that's all that matters, he said softly. You nodded against his chest, feeling the weight of his words sink in. No matter what, you had Jungkook, and that was enough for now. The party seemed to flow around you, but your focus was on the conversation happening just a few feet away. You and Jungkook were standing with his friends, sipping soft drinks and engaging in light conversation. Jungkook's hand was wrapped protectively around yours, his thumb gently rubbing the back of your hand. You felt safe with him, but the presence of your parents nearby made your heart heavy. Your father was standing close by, talking to his old friends. The air was thick with tension, but you tried to stay calm, ignoring the occasional glances your father shot your way, but then his words reached your ears. How are you, Kim? One of his friends asked, giving your father a friendly pat on the back. Good, your father replied with his smug tone. I got rid of a burden. The words stung like a slap to your face, and you knew without looking that his eyes were on you. Jungkook immediately tightened his grip on your hand, offering silent support, but you couldn't help the sadness that welled up inside you. Oh really? Good to know, his friend replied clearly, unaware of the hurtful undertone. What about you? Your father asked, as if trying to move the conversation away from his bitterness. Nothing new came, his friend sighed. My daughter was in love with some useless guy, but I fixed her marriage with a businessman. She didn't want to marry him at first, but I made her see sense. Now she is marrying someone respectable. Thank God she listened to me. Her boyfriend was nothing but a criminal. Your father's eyes found yours again, and he glared at you with a seriousness that made your stomach churn. You looked down, feeling small under his gaze, but deep inside, you didn't regret marrying Jungkook. You loved him, and you knew he loved you more than anything in the world. You're lucky, Joy. Your father said bitterly, I got a daughter, sorry. Shouldn't listen to me and married the worst man in the world. Your breath caught in your throat and your entire body tensed. The insult hung in the air like a position. You couldn't believe what you had just heard. Your father, the man who was supposed to be. Jungkook froze beside you, his face darkened instantly and his entire demeanor shifted without a word. He reached behind him and pulled a gun from the waist of his belt, his hand shaking with rage. Before you could even react, he pointed the gun directly at your father's head. What did you just call my wife? His voice was deadly serious, his tone filled with anger and hurt, his eyes blazed with fury, his jaw clenched tightly. Everyone around you gasped in shock, the entire room falling silent as all eyes turned to the scene unfolding before them. Your father's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared down the barrel of the gun. How dare you point the gun at me? He yelled, his voice shaking with fear and anger. Jungkook didn't back down. How dare you call my wife? He shouted, his voice full of rage. His hand didn't waver, and you could see the tears swarming in his eyes, not from weakness, but from the sheer pain of hearing someone insult you, the woman he loved with all his heart. Jungkook's eyes were locked on your father, his grip on the gun still firm, but your voice raised him. You could see the conflict in his eyes, the anger that burned so brightly, but also the love he had for you. Tears streamed down. Jungkook, please, you repeated, tears welling up in your own eyes. I'm begging you. Slowly, ever so slowly, Jungkook's arm began to lower, his chest heaved with heavy breath, and finally he let the gun drop to his side. His voice was hoarse when he spoke. I'm only letting you live because of your daughter. She is the most precious thing in the world to me, he said through gritted teeth. His gaze never leaves your father's. If it were anyone else, I would have killed them without hesitation. Be grateful, and if you can't respect her as a daughter, at least respect her as a woman. With that, Jungkook took your hand and led you away, pulling you gently but firmly toward the exit. I didn't want you to endure another second of your father's cruelty. As you walked away, you glanced over your shoulder at your mother. Her face was etched with pain, her eyes filled with tears, as she stood helpless beside your father, but then something inside her seemed to break. I never expected you to stoop so low, your mother said, her voice shaking with emotion. How dare you talk about our daughter like that? You don't deserve her. You're the one who is the disgrace here, not her. With that, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the venue, leaving your father standing there in shock. Jungkook didn't stop until you were outside, where he pulled you into his arms, holding you close. You could feel his heart pounding against your chest, his breath shaky as he tried to calm down. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry, Van. You held him tightly, knowing that no matter what you had each other. Then you both get into the car. The drive back to the mansion was quiet. The only sound was your soft sobbing, which you tried your best to muffle, but Jungkook could hear every tear that fell. He didn't say anything, giving you the space you needed. His grip on the steering wheel was tight, knuckles white, still tense from the confrontation with your father. He glanced at you every now and then, his heart aching to see you like this. Once you reached the mansion, Jungkook parked the car and you both silently entered. You walked straight to the couch and sat down, your body feeling heavy with emotion. Jungkook stood nearby, watching you carefully, unsure if he should speak or give you more space, but seeing you so broken made his decision for him. He knelt in front of you, gently lifting your chin so you could meet his gaze. Wine, he whispered softly, his eyes filled with concern. I'm sorry, I couldn't control myself when he called you that horrible name. You looked at him, your eyes still full of tears. Without thinking, you threw your arms around him, holding him tightly as the dam finally broke. Jungkook, you whispered against his chest, and for a few good minutes you let yourself cry. Cry for the pain your father's words had caused. Cry for the years of trying to gain their acceptance and never receiving it. Jungkook held you close, his arms wrapped securely around you as if he could shield you from all the hurt in the world. When you finally pulled away, your face was streaked with tears, but there was a sense of relief in your eyes. I didn't know my father held that much grudge against me, you said, your voice shaky. Jungkook's jaw tightened. Man, if he were your real father, he wouldn't have said those things. He replied firmly, I know he adopted you and I respect that he raised you, but no father, biological or not, has the right to speak to his daughter that way. That's why I reacted. I'm sorry if it hurt you, but I couldn't stand by and let him insult you. You looked into Jungkook's eyes filled with love and protectiveness. His words hit you hard, but in a good way. He was right. No father should talk to their child like that. You wiped your tears and managed a small smile. Thank you, Jungkook. Thank you so much for loving me this much. You said, your voice sincere. I used to cry for my parents even though I knew it hurt you, but now I don't want to hurt you anymore. If he doesn't understand me now, maybe he will one day. Jungkook's face softened and a small smile tugged at his lips. He leaned forward and pressed a soft kiss to your forehead. I love you, Wan, he said quietly, his voice filled with warmth. I love you too, Jungkook, you whispered back, feeling a sense of peace wash over you. Jungkook stood up and sat beside you on the couch. He pulled you into his embrace, his arms wrapping around you protectively. You rested your head on his chest. It was comforting, grounding you after the emotional storm you had just weathered. His fingers gently ran through your hair, and the warmth of his body soothed you. For a while, neither of you spoke. You didn't need to. Being in each other's arms was enough. You felt safe, loved, and understood, and in that moment you realized that no matter what your father or anyone else thought, you had everything you needed right here with Jungkook. Sometimes he began, his voice soft but clear. Family isn't about blood, it's about who stands by your side when the world turns against you. You looked up at him, your heart swelling with love and gratitude, and you have always stood by me, you whispered, feeling the truth of his words deep in your soul. Always, he replied, pressing another kiss to her forehead, no matter what. With those words, you knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, as long as you had Jungkook by your side, you would be okay. Thank you for watching.